Darling, I have some unfortunate news. The merger meeting has been rescheduled, and I have to leave early tomorrow morning. I won't be back until late Sunday. I understand how crucial this wedding is for you, especially since you're the maid of honor. However, I've recently been promoted to CFO, and missing this meeting isn't an option. There's a lot at stake for the company and our future. I'm truly sorry, but you'll have to attend the wedding without me. Are you kidding me? After all the planning we've done, you're just going to cancel at the last minute. I'll be there alone. Do you realize how embarrassing that'll be for me? Can't someone else go in your place? Nicole, this deal is worth over $2 billion, and I'm leading the project. We've put in so much effort over the past year, and there's no one else who can step in for me. Many people's livelihoods depend on our success. I understand your frustration, but I promise to make it up to you with the bonus from this deal. I know you're upset, but there's nothing more I can do. I'll be back on Sunday. To say she was furious would be an understatement. She refused to speak to me and insisted I sleep in the guest room. The lack of intimacy before the trip was unusual, as was her coldness and anger. I tried to empathize, but couldn't ease her anger, so I packed for my trip and spent the night in the guest room. I knew the wedding held immense significance for her, especially considering the hardships her lifelong friend Mary had endured. Mary's ex-husband had cheated on her during her life-threatening illness and left her when she needed him the most. It was a devastating blow to Mary, exacerbating her already challenging situation. However, following a miraculous recovery, Mary initiated divorce proceedings due to abandonment and battled depression for the next 5 years. Despite the unwavering support of her friends and family, their efforts to uplift her spirits seemed futile. Then one day, she crossed paths with a man at the grocery store, and her world suddenly bloomed anew. She regained her former vivacity, much to the relief of her loved ones who had prayed fervently for her happiness. As her fiancé, Harry poured his heart into planning their spectacular wedding. Nicole, her loyal best friend and maid of honor, stood by her side throughout her journey. I understood the significance of this occasion to Nicole and regretted having to cancel, but circumstances left me no choice. I resolved to make it up to her despite her understandable anger. On the morning of my departure, I attempted to bid Nicole farewell with a kiss, only to find our bedroom door firmly locked, her refusal to open it evident. Expressing my love for her, I promised to call upon my arrival in France, met with silence as I made my way sadly to the waiting limousine bound for the airport. Her actions left me feeling terrible and despondent, longing for understanding given our 19 years of marriage. Despite repeated attempts to reach her before, during, and after my flight, her phone remained unanswered, each voicemail and text left unacknowledged. It was clear she was furious, and I knew I had a significant amount of apologizing to do to regain her favor. With no other recourse, I turned to our twin daughters in college, confiding in them about my altered plans and their mother's silence. I urged them to discreetly check on her well-being, emphasizing my concern and longing for reassurance. They had reassured me of their love and understanding, embodying the affectionate bond we shared. Upon reaching the hotel in France, I immediately contacted my CEO for an update, only to receive shocking news. The meeting had been abruptly canceled due to a death in the other company's CEO's family, necessitating a rescheduling. Determined to salvage the evening, I swiftly arranged a direct flight to Chicago O'Hare, a mere 30-minute drive from the reception venue. With the wedding festivities scheduled to commence at 7 p.m., I calculated that I could arrive by 9 p.m., aiming to fulfill my role as a devoted husband and bring a smile to her face. After securing a rental car, I relied on the GPS for directions to the reception hall. Entering the venue a little after 9, I was greeted by the vibrant atmosphere of joyous celebration. The air was filled with lively music, bodies swaying on the dance floor, and libations flowing freely. Amidst the revelry, I couldn't help but feel a surge of happiness at the thought of reuniting with my wife. The reception boasted a sizable turnout, with over 200 guests milling about. Scanning the crowd, I couldn't immediately spot Nicole. Making my way to the open bar, I ordered a double bourbon, taking a moment to observe the scene before me. My mind wandered back to the journey Nicole and I had undertaken together, reflecting on the challenges we had overcome to reach this point. Nicole, 5 years my senior and recently divorced when we met, had endured her own tumultuous past. Her former husband, Dr. Miles Anderson, known as Dr. Miles, had shattered her dreams of a happy life when his infidelity came to light. Devastated by his betrayal, Nicole had bravely initiated a divorce, leaving her emotionally scared and financially strained. Struggling to make ends meet as a waitress, she understood all too well the pain that her friend Mary had endured. From the moment I laid eyes on Nicole, I knew she was the one. Despite her struggles and moments of despair, I recognized her inner strength and saw her as a precious gem waiting to be polished. While her outward beauty was evident, it was her compassionate heart and nurturing soul that captured my love. Over the years, I became her beacon of hope, guiding her through the darkness and steering her towards a brighter future. Together, we shared 19 glorious years, blessed with the joy of raising our twin daughters. Nicole admired my straightforward approach to relationships, finding solace in our discussions about loyalty and commitment. I reassured her of my unwavering devotion, vowing never to tolerate infidelity in any form. I applauded her decision to end her marriage despite the challenges it presented, recognizing her courage to forge ahead. Trust, loyalty, and commitment formed the bedrock of our union. Until the upheaval caused by this wedding, life had been blissful and fulfilling. At 44, Nicole radiated beauty, while I, at 39, reveled in the peak of physical fitness attained through rigorous gym sessions and regular 5K runs. Our intimate connection remained strong, our age difference a non-issue seldom pondered over the years. With our twin daughters, Louise and Camilla, thriving in college, we took pride in our family's success and the stability of our marriage. However, my world was shaken when I spotted Nicole seated beside Miles, her ex-husband, at the wedding. While I knew Miles was acquainted with Mary, the bride, I hadn't anticipated his presence, let alone his solitary status without his wife. Exhausted from the journey and bewildered by the sight before me, I stood rooted in place, observing Nicole and her ex-husband in what seemed like a disturbingly intimate encounter. Despite their tumultuous history, they appeared remarkably at ease in each other's company. Intrigued yet wary, I decided to linger for a moment longer, hoping to discern the nature of their interaction. However, what unfolded before my eyes shattered my world with alarming speed. Just as I contemplated intervening, Nicole rose from her seat, entwined her fingers with his, and led him onto the dance floor. Clad in a stunning ivory gown that accentuated her beauty, she exuded an allure that tugged at my heartstrings, prompting fervent prayers for this to be nothing more than a harmless dance. My disbelief deepened as they swayed to the melancholic melodies of several slow songs. Nursing my drink, I braced myself for what might transpire next. Although Nicole's flirtatious behavior under the influence was not unheard of, witnessing her openly kiss another man, disregarding our marital vows in front of our friends, ignited a raging inferno of humiliation and fury within me. Stuck in a state of shock, I seethed as her ex-husband brazenly groped her, and she reciprocated, oblivious to the pain she inflicted. As they returned to their seats, their embrace intensified, resembling that of newlyweds on their honeymoon. The sight of his hands roaming freely over her body, her own hand hidden beneath the table, brought me to a stark realization. My marriage had crumbled beyond repair. Recalling my father's sage advice, high-valued men don't tolerate disrespect, I resolved to address the situation with dignity, rather than succumb to anger. While I could have caused a scene, disrupting the wedding ceremony and halting their indiscretion, I chose restraint. After all, if Nicole desired him, she was no longer mine to claim. With an eerie calm, I reached for my phone, capturing incriminating evidence, a series of close-up photos and a brief video, before composing a pointed message. Exciting news, darling. The meeting was rescheduled, And I'm back. Seems you're in good company tonight with Dr. Miles. I'll be heading home, assuming you'll be spending the night with him. Understand now why you've been silent. Enjoy the demise of our marriage. I'll be long gone by your return tomorrow." I sent the message and observed silently, noting the notification lighting up her phone on the table. Her reaction, swift and sobering, was evident from the seriousness that clouded her expression. Sensing her panic, I made my exit from the reception, avoiding her pursuit as I reached my car. Despite her pleas to wait, I remained resolute, silently shaking my head as I drove away, ignoring the incessant ringing of my phone. If Nicole chose to reunite with her ex-husband, then our relationship was irreparably shattered. After witnessing her hasty retreat into his arms, 22 years after divorcing him for infidelity, there was no doubt in my mind. Our marriage was over. She would bear the burden of explaining her actions to her family and children. This betrayal rested squarely on her shoulders. Dozens of frantic text messages started arriving on my phone. "Travis, please come back. Let me explain. I love you, please come back. Damn it, Travis, it wasn't what it looked like. I love you." After enduring 2 days of grueling 10-hour flights and being met with silence, coldness, and the sight of her with Miles, I had reached my breaking point. I harbored a fury unlike any I had felt before and wanted nothing to do with her or her excuses. Despite her relentless attempts to reach me through numerous calls and texts, I finally stopped and sent a single message: "Screw you." My professional life was flourishing. My children were off to college with their expenses covered, and I found myself unencumbered. Still young enough to start anew, I embarked on the 7-hour journey back to Nashville, stopping at a diner for a meal and a brief rest. During my meal of eggs and bacon, I resolved to broadcast my sentiments to the world. Facebook, the prevalent social media platform of the time, seemed the ideal medium. Between mouthfuls, I altered my marital status from happily married to single and available. I then uploaded 2 photos capturing Nicole and Miles in a passionate embrace at the wedding, with one distinctly showing his hand on her breast. Beneath the photos, I elucidated that Nicole was upgrading, rekindling her relationship with her ex-husband, while I found myself back on the market. It might have been petty, but to me, it was the truth, a declaration of my readiness to move forward without her. Ironically, Miles, her ex, was nearing 50, balding, overweight, and without intending to boast, hardly an upgrade. What was her rationale in leaving us for an older man who had betrayed her decades ago? Perhaps she sought the allure of a doctor over an accountant. To be candid, it stung. Indeed, it stung deeply. I experienced a blend of sadness, anger, and bemusement at the absurdity of it all. She was relinquishing a 19-year marriage for a man who had cheated on her over 2 decades prior. Let them have each other. They were suited in their folly. I refused to tolerate such disrespect. While some may argue it was merely a kiss and some touching in my world, my partner is either committed to me or free to be with another. We all navigate our choices and consequences. After indulging in a late breakfast and a 2-hour nap in the car, I resumed my journey, pulling into my driveway by 7 a.m. as I powered on my phone. It began incessantly chiming with notifications, inundating me with messages from her parents, her sister, and friends. The flood seemed endless, with over 100 messages flooding my inbox. Within minutes of switching on my phone, Nicole's name flashed on the screen. I pondered whether she had managed any sleep that night, or if she had spent it with Miles. Regardless, I brushed off her calls, my focus now solely on retrieving my belongings from the house and moving forward. Despite my amicable relations with her family, I felt compelled to address the situation when they reached out that morning. When her father called, I explained the situation candidly. "Victor, I was blindsided by Nicole's infidelity. It shattered the foundation of our marriage. The blatant disrespect she displayed in front of our acquaintances is something I cannot tolerate. It's evident she still harbors feelings for him, and so be it. I intend to seek a partner who values what I bring to the table and remains faithful. I have no other recourse. I'll be vacating the premises today and promptly listing the house for sale. Tomorrow, I'll consult with a lawyer to initiate divorce proceedings. Call me traditional, but I refuse to cohabit with a woman who desires another. She's made her decision, but I question its wisdom this time. Victor arrived over an hour later, pleading with me to hold off and allow for a conversation with her before taking drastic measures. After urging me to grant her the opportunity to explain, I directed him to revisit the photo, emphasizing their brazen displays of affection at the wedding. There was no way I could tolerate such behavior, especially with her ex. It was a further affront to me. Her father, disappointed by her actions and my swift response, left with a heavy heart. Stepping into our once cherished home, a wave of sorrow washed over me as I confronted the stark reality that it was now merely a hollow shell, emblematic of the erosion of our once blissful marriage. Over the past 5 years, we had painstakingly transformed this space into our sanctuary. Back when mortgage rates hovered below 2.99%, we seized the opportunity to refinance, extracting nearly $500,000 of equity to finance our dreams. With prudent foresight, I earmarked $200,000 for each of our daughters' college educations, ensuring they had a solid foundation for their futures. The remainder was invested in upgrading our home, a labor of love that brought us immense pride and joy. Despite the slight uptick in our monthly payments, the decision was a no-brainer, and Nicole took on a receptionist job to bridge the gap. My income was steady, nothing extravagant, but my recent promotion to CFO promised future stability, with stock options poised to bolster our retirement funds. Nicole, content to leave financial matters to me, had never shown much interest in the intricacies of our investments. While I attempted to elucidate the concept of stock options, her disinterest was palpable, prompting me to chuckle at her lack of engagement. Nonetheless, I remained optimistic about our shared future. The impending merger, coinciding eerily with the unraveling of our marriage, held the promise of a substantial bonus in the form of stock options, potentially amounting to 40,000 shares if all went according to plan. Though the fruition of these options lay years ahead, the prospect of our stocks reaching $100 per share buoyed my confidence in our financial prospects. Given the temporary suspension of the merger, these options wouldn't factor into the divorce settlement. Opting for irreconcilable differences, I resolved to divide our assets evenly, which translated to approximately $50,000 from our savings account. The proceeds from the sale of our house would be split, though our leveraged position meant there'd be scant to divvy up. At a mere 44 years old, Nicole would depart with her car and $25,000. Had she remained faithful, she would have continued to bask in a life filled with love and security. However, my overriding emotions of anger and humiliation eclipsed any remnants of affection or nostalgia. All I craved now was retribution, for her to comprehend the gravity of her actions and the precious bond she had forsaken. Narrative on behalf of Nicole. Encountering Miles after 2 decades stirred a whirlwind of emotions, dredging up memories both sweet and bitter. Despite his past infidelity and the subsequent demise of our marriage, there was an undeniable chemistry between us, a lingering connection that beckoned me in spite of myself. While Travis, my devoted and handsome husband, far surpassed Miles in every aspect, there was a certain allure to the familiarity of my former partner. Sitting there with Miles, succumbing to his touch and indulging in flirtation, I knew it was wrong, yet I couldn't resist. Blame it on the alcohol or Travis's absence, his failure to rearrange his schedule to accompany me to the wedding. A part of me felt entitled to this fleeting pleasure. After all, Miles was now single, and a harmless flirtation wouldn't hurt anyone. As we shared another kiss, a rush of warmth enveloped me, emboldening me to entertain the notion of further intimacy in our secluded corner. With the revelers too inebriated to notice, I convinced myself that a bit of harmless fun wouldn't tarnish my commitment to Travis. But then a message interrupted our tryst, igniting a panicked realization that Travis had arrived and likely witnessed our indiscretion. Frantically excusing myself, I dashed out of the reception, desperately chasing after Travis as he retreated to his car. Despite my pleas, he remained resolute, driving off without a word. Rejected and heartbroken, I bombarded him with calls and messages, only to receive a curt and devastating response. "Screw you." Found by concerned friends outside in the frigid night, I recounted my folly, their shock and concern serving as a sobering reminder of the gravity of my actions. They knew Travis's unwavering nature and feared the repercussions of his witnessing our intimate encounter. Caught between regret and remorse, I braced myself for the storm that awaited. Narrative on behalf of Travis. After loading up my truck, I settled at the kitchen table, savoring what would be my final cup of coffee in the home we once shared. A maelstrom of sadness and anger churned within me as I placed the empty cup in the sink. With a heavy heart, I left a terse note on the table, instructing her not to contact me until the divorce proceedings were underway. There was no need for signatures. I simply left my wedding ring atop the papers. Before departing for the last time, I fired up my laptop to divide our finances, swiftly closing our joint credit card account after settling the outstanding balance. From this day forward, she would be solely responsible for her financial affairs. Should she contest the divorce, she would bear the burden of all expenses alone. It was clear she couldn't shoulder the mortgage and utilities on her own. The house, a desirable property, would fetch a swift sale at the right price. If she acquiesced to the divorce, we could swiftly dissolve this facade of a marriage, allowing her to reunite with her beloved Miles. And so I drove away from our once sanctuary, venturing into the unknown depths of a new reality. Later, I learned from friends at the wedding that Nicole had unraveled in my absence. Her inconsolable tears and the weight of her sorrow led her into a state of inebriated exhaustion, collapsing into a troubled sleep. Concerned for her well-being, her friends made frantic attempts to reach me, leaving voicemails and text messages in hopes of intervention. To salvage what remained of the wedding reception, they ushered her back to her hotel room, where they monitored her throughout the night. Upon waking, the stark reality of her actions hit her with a wave of regret, prompting a flurry of desperate calls and messages begging for forgiveness. Yet, after witnessing her betrayal, I remained resolute in my silence, unwilling to entertain her pleas. Narrative on behalf of Nicole. On Sunday morning, I awoke with a pounding headache and the weight of impending divorce looming over me. By noon, I was on a flight back home, where Dad awaited me at the airport. Later, I discovered that Travis had informed my father he wouldn't be able to pick me up, necessitating a ride from Dad instead. Judging by Dad's concerned expression, I must have looked worse than I felt. He was my anchor, and seeing him there, I hurried over, burying my face in his shoulder as tears streamed down my cheeks. "Daddy, I've messed everything up, and I think Travis has left me," I confessed, my voice choked with emotion. With a heavy heart, Dad spoke gently to his distraught daughter. "I spoke to him this morning, and it doesn't look promising. You know Travis. What were you thinking, sweetheart? And with Miles?" "I don't know, Daddy. I was drunk and angry because Travis didn't come to the wedding. I know I've made a mess of things, but he has to forgive me. I didn't even do anything intimate with Miles." "Sweetheart, from the pictures I've seen, it certainly looks like it could have happened. Travis might not be quick to forgive. You know him. And you being with another man, as depicted in those photos, constitutes cheating," Dad explained somberly. Upon returning home, she clung to the hope that Travis would be there, waiting for her forgiveness. But deep down, she knew Travis well enough to anticipate his absence. The remainder of the day was spent in tears, her futile attempts to reach Travis' cell phone serving as a poignant reminder of the gravity of her transgression. The bitter irony of the situation was not lost on her, betraying Travis with the same man who had betrayed her years ago. In the blink of an eye, the man she loved and the life they cherished together seemed to have disintegrated, evidenced by his wedding ring atop the terse note left on the table. Narrative on behalf of Travis. In the interim, I relocated to the company's condo, typically reserved for out-of-town clients. With no upcoming bookings, I sought approval from my CEO, Wayne, to stay there after sharing my situation with him. Wayne, a trusted friend who had weathered similar storms in the past, offered sage advice, suggesting I postpone this year's options and accrue them for a later date. The following day, I returned to my office on the 16th floor, knowing Nicole wouldn't be able to breach security if she attempted to confront me at work. I issued strict instructions to the security team to promptly escort her out of the building should she make an appearance. True to their proficiency, when Nicole did arrive on Monday, she swiftly grasped that any attempts at interaction would be futile. Despite her desperate efforts to reach me, I remained resolute in my desire to sever all ties with her. Unaware of my whereabouts and met with silence to her calls, she found herself isolated, consumed by anger, loneliness, and fear for her uncertain future. Amidst their concern for their mother, my daughters inundated me with frantic calls. They pleaded with me to reconcile with their mom. In response, I reiterated that their mother had made her choice to be with another man, emphasizing my unwavering stance against infidelity. Before they could voice their objections, I clarified that, in my eyes, her actions constituted cheating. Knowing better than to challenge my decision, my daughters accepted it with respect. In a composed manner, I conveyed that their mom had opted for another man over me, signaling the imminent dissolution of our marriage. However, I reassured them of my enduring love and support, asserting my commitment to remain present in their lives. I implored them to heed this lesson in their own future relationships, emphasizing the importance of mutual respect and fidelity in marriage, as most men wouldn't tolerate such blatant disrespect. Following my Facebook post, amusing events unfolded. Amidst the flurry of calls from curious friends and family seeking explanations, I found myself a sought-after bachelor in the dating scene. Suddenly thrust back into the realm of singlehood, I began seeing younger, vivacious women who injected a newfound energy and excitement into my life. Meanwhile, discontent and complaints vanished from Nicole's world, replaced by heightened sexuality, affectionate texts, and persistent pursuit from fun-loving ladies. A month later, I crossed paths with my future wife, Diana, and our connection was instantaneous. Within a few months of finalizing the divorce, Diana and I became a committed couple. Nicole, upon discovering my newfound happiness, experienced a mix of anger towards herself, jealousy and resentment towards me for not granting her another chance before the divorce. However, I rebuffed all her attempts to meet, opting to communicate solely through our attorneys. Ultimately, the house sold swiftly, leaving a meager amount of equity after real estate fees and closing costs. I instructed that the remaining funds, less than $1,000, be allocated to Nicole. Despite the attorney's efforts to secure my options, the court ruled against attaching potential future earnings, basing the settlement on my average income. Given Nicole's employment status, alimony wasn't a significant hurdle, and I ultimately agreed to support her for 2 years at $2,000 per month, a modest sum but sufficient for her to sustain herself until she regained her footing or found another partner willing to support her, a role I had no intention of reprising. Epilogue. In the ensuing years, communication between Nicole and me remained limited to exchanges facilitated by our attorneys. She eventually relocated to Chicago, seeking solace among friends and a support network. With no other viable prospects, she found herself living with the aging Dr. Miles. However, it became evident that she would never recapture the same level of happiness she once experienced with me. Regretting her impulsive and selfish decisions, she lamented the loss of what we had shared and the consequences of her actions. Despite her claims of innocence regarding that fateful night, she acknowledged her familiarity with my character and the gravity of her error, portraying herself as a lonely woman grasping for fulfillment. Our paths crossed again at our daughter's graduation 3 years later. Nicole, now pushing 47, bore the unmistakable marks of time's passage. Her sorrowful gaze betrayed the toll of her choices, Accompanied by Dr. Miles, who wisely kept his distance, she approached me with tears in her eyes upon meeting my 28-year-old pregnant wife, Cheryl, and our 1-year-old daughter, June. Alone together later that afternoon, Nicole finally voiced her remorse. "Travis, you never gave me the chance to apologize. I should have known better. Not a day goes by that I don't regret my foolish actions that weekend. We had everything, and I threw it all away for nothing. You were the epitome of a perfect husband, and I miss the beautiful life we once shared. Nicole, that's all in the past, and I forgive you," I replied, a sense of closure evident in my tone. "Yes, I never imagined you in his arms while I was away working towards our future. But I want to thank you. You gave me 19 incredible years and 2 wonderful daughters. I will always cherish that. Because of your betrayal, I found Diana, and starting a new family with June and our baby girl has helped me let go of the anger I once harbored towards you. It's time for you to focus on yourself and embrace the future. Our past is just that, the past. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you at our daughter's future milestones." Just then, Diana joined me with our daughter cradled in her arms, and I introduced them. The contrast in age was stark. Nicole, at 47, could have easily passed for Cheryl's mother. Once again, she felt the sting of regret for losing the man she loved over a single night of anger and selfishness. Over the next decade, we reconvened at our daughter's weddings. While Nicole never remarried, she continued to reside with Miles, who treated her kindly. Witnessing me with my new family and our 2 young daughters reignited a flood of bittersweet memories for her. The once vibrant life of love and happiness she had known now seemed forever out of reach, leaving her to lead a quiet existence, tinged with remorse for the love and joy she had let slip away. As my final act of closure, that summer following the execution of my stock options, I reclaimed my old home, which had returned to the market. Everyone in my circle, family and friends alike, shared in the excitement of the home's return, with fond memories flooding back. My daughters relished the opportunity to revisit and reminisce about their formative years spent in our loving household. It was a shame Nicole had chosen a divergent path. She would have reveled in the opportunity to dwell in the life we had once envisioned together. Nevertheless, life moves forward, and I find solace in crafting new experiences and cherished moments with my beloved wife and our little girls. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.